Live on this broadcast, Mr. Arun Singh, thank you so much for being with us. Help us understand what is going on over here. It's not the first time that India has complained of its diplomats being harassed in Pakistan. It's been a recurring feature. But we're talking about a new government that's just taken charge in India. There's talk of continuity. Pakistan has wanted to bring talks back on the table with India. But this kind of diplomatic acrimony certainly doesn't bode well.
I think it's an unfortunate incident. It's unfortunate because of the occasion. It was an iftar party, the holy month of Ramzan. Therefore, to disrupt something like that on this occasion was clearly not warranted. It's also unfortunate because of late Pakistan has been trying to signal that it wants to start a new process with India, that there is a new government with a consolidated mandate in India, and they would like to move forward on the path of peace, dialogue, some kind of discussion going forward. There was an encounter, not an official meeting, but an encounter between Pakistan's foreign minister and India's former external affairs minister, Sushma Swaraj, just a couple of weeks ago in Kyrgyzstan when they were there for the SCO foreign ministers meeting. Pakistan has been indicating that it wants to move forward when the Prime Minister of India and the Prime Minister of Pakistan are going to be in the middle of June for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Heads of State Government meeting, and that's on 13-14 June. So in that context, to do an event like this, to disrupt an event being hosted by the Indian High Commission is clearly not warranted. Now, of course, this is not something new in Pakistan. They have routinely, repeatedly harassed Indian diplomats. They have tried to disrupt events being done by India, by the Indian High Commission. But given the fact that the civilian government in Pakistan has been trying to signal positively, some have suggested that the present civilian government in Pakistan is in sync with the Pakistan military. Whatever they are doing has been coordinated with them. And also some have suggested that the present army chief in Pakistan has been talking of peace with India, moving positively with India. So given all that, what has happened does not really seem synchronous. So either the civilian government in Pakistan is saying something which is not in keeping with what is the thinking of the Pakistani establishment, the army and the ISI, or what the Pakistan army chief has been saying is not really being supported by actions on the ground. So these are things that India would have to keep in mind as it looks at the next steps with Pakistan. Of course, one can argue that the Pakistanis may have their own sort of arguments. They would draw attention to the fact that when the Pakistan High Commission in March this year was observing its National Day, there were reports of presence of Indian security personnel outside the High Commission, discouraging some of the guests from going in. But the kind of heavy-handed action that Pakistan has taken, physically accosting people, using forklifts to remove the vehicles of guests, preventing guests, reportedly some of whom came from far away as Lahore and Karachi to attend, preventing them from attending, it is completely at another level. So reading into this, I would feel that there is still a deep division within the Pakistani establishment on how they want to proceed with India in terms of the next steps. And so one has to calibrate the steps with Pakistan very carefully.
Right. I also want to ask, this happened in Islamabad, in the capital of Pakistan, and the Prime Minister, Imran Khan, who resides in the very same city, has been talking so much, with the arrival of the new regime, which is a continuation of the old regime, and how he wants talks between India and Pakistan to progress. But this is what his diplomats are up to with Indian diplomats. And in that sense, he might be saying what he's saying, but his country's actions are not putting the mouth where the money is.
So I think it is a missed opportunity from their side because they've been signaling that they want to start the process of engagement with India. There have been positive exchanges of messages on Pakistan's National Day in March, and then after the new government was, after the elections in India, when the Prime Minister was again taking over. So given all that and their indication that they would like to have something positive happening in the framework of this Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit meeting in the middle of June, then to do an incident like this, to me suggests that within the Pakistani establishment, there are deep divisions on how to proceed with India. And therefore, India has to be careful in terms of what next steps to take, because in the past, what we have seen is that when we have responded positively to the messages coming from the civilian establishment, and the army and the ISI are not comfortable with that, then they create some event to disrupt the process. And therefore, I think very, very carefully calculated judgment would have to be made in India about what is the level of the army and civilians being on the same page as far as the relations with India are concerned. And given the differences that may exist, how should India look at doing the next steps with Pakistan, instead of responding to just the superficial statements coming out from the Pakistani civilian leadership.
Former Indian diplomat Mr. Arun Singh joining us with that perspective on our broadcaster. Thank you, Mr. Arun Singh, for taking time out to be with us here this Sunday.